if you take the most expensive property in the world with the most expensive way to make it, the most expensive way to bottle it, the whole thing, it's impossible for that wine to be worth cost you more than $40. Impossible. Just impossible.
Really?
The difference between $40 and that level is what you're willing to pay for it. So their bottles of wine itself are $800 to $1,000 a bottle. Well, it didn't cost them more than $50 to make on the high. So that's, like a painting. We go over there. How much is that painting? It's like it's a piece of wood and paint. It costs probably $5, right? But so how much you pay for that? So the difference between this is when you separate cost versus value. I ascribe a value to this at X. So when it comes to pricing, you either have, it just depends. A lot of it's on the brand power. Okay. Oh, it's Screaming Eagle. It's Mondavi, so it's got to be good, right? Listen, if I put two sweaters next to each other side by side, and you saw them, identical sweaters, one was $40, one $60, what's the better sweater? $60. Because why? Because it costs $60. Yeah. So that's the game theory when it comes to pricing.
Hello, everyone. If you're new here, welcome to the Justin Hollen podcast. And if you're returning, welcome back. For those of you that don't know who I am or what this podcast is about, my name is Justin Hollen, and this is a podcast where I host long-form conversations with friends, associates, academics, and professionals around a range of topics that I think can bring interest to you and the rest of the internet. First off, I'd like to say that I appreciate all of you for being here and giving me your time. And if you'd like to support my channel so I can continue to grow the guests I have, I just ask that you please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, maybe leave a comment down below, and share this with a friend or family member that you think would find this discussion interesting. And if you're watching this and you know someone that you think would be interesting to be on this podcast, or you're interested in coming on this podcast, I ask that you either email me, message me on Instagram, or leave a comment down below. And so on today's podcast, I had the honor to host Jay Raffaldini. Jay is the owner and founder of Raffaldini Vineyards and Winery located in North Carolina. He is of Italian heritage and has played a significant role in bringing the Italian winemaking tradition to the East Coast. His winery specializes in Italian varietals, mainly using the appassimento process, which involves drying grapes to bring them closer to the authentic Italian style. Jay is also a prominent figure in the hedge fund industry, and along with his partners, manages $9 billion assets for investors all over the globe. Jay is one of the most grounded yet intelligent individuals I have ever met, and this podcast was packed full of insights, from wine to finance to just life in general. So I hope you all enjoy listening to this conversation that we had. Why wine? You could have chosen to do any other financial pursuit, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of other ones that probably have a way better return on investment. So why'd you start with a vineyard? Well,
first of all, thank you for having me. And I have to say, financial pursuit and vineyards are words that usually don't follow each other, right? Because what it is there's many other ways to make money. But usually in order to start a vineyard, you already have money because it takes a lot of money to do it. And at the end of the day is when you get older, like me, you realize that there's also this happiness part of your life that has to factor into your life equation. Because very often, life is short, and you make a lot of money, and then you're not able to enjoy it. So early on in my trading career on Wall Street, when I was in my mid-30s, I started to make some good money on the trading floor, and there was this old guy, I think he was like 45, right? He came up to me and he says, "Jake, I want to talk to you for something." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me tell you something. You're doing great right now, but let me tell you, eventually there's this saying on Wall Street, there are old traders and bull traders, but no old and bull traders. Because eventually you're going to get tapped on the shoulder, walked out because you did something wrong and lost a lot of money. So have your second act in life planned." I had thought about that for a while, and I realized that I love wine. I grew up with wine, and that my second act was to do something with wine. And if you have money and you love wine, there's only two paths that you can go. One way is to have a fancy trophy cellar that you kind of show off. And I do love showing off, but that's not part of it. The other is to start a business. And more I thought about it, the more I was drawn to starting a business aspect of it. So it was kind of like my financial bucket is full, time to fill the happiness bucket. And that was the beginning of that journey.
Gotcha. Okay. So should we talk about what wine this is?
Yeah. So we're drinking our 2021 Montepulciano, which is kind of our easily grown grape, because grapes are very brutal to grow east of the Rocky Mountain. In fact, you probably shouldn't grow grapes east of the Rocky Mountain. You should probably plant wheat or something, right? Wheat is much better here than grapes. And this one is kind of one that doesn't take a lot of effort. It actually is well adapted to North Carolina, and it makes wines that are kind of like in a Merlot weight. So it's kind of called this my mid-level, crowd-pleasing, not a sophisticated wine.
Okay. So you should start it to not. Why east of the Rocky Mountains? Why is that?
Yeah, because the east of the Rocky Mountains is we have this problem called humidity, and it's unrelenting.
Okay.
Is it particularly North Carolina or the East Coast, right? It cannot rain for 3 weeks. You run your hand on the grass in the morning, it's sopping wet. So grapes are sponges, and they pick up their environment. And good or bad, like in Napa when they had the fires, they picked up the smoke. And so the grapes had what they call smoke taint. And here they're picking up humidity. So the grapes are waterlogged. That's the problem.
Okay. Is that where because you mentioned it at the appassimento process?
The drying process.
Yes.
Exactly. So our goal is, because if you look at where wines are grown around the world successfully, is they're grown in very dry and arid places. The humidity is like 30%. Here it's like 99.9 in the summer. And a low is 99.8. So it's everywhere. So when you harvest the grapes, you have a lot of water with them. And so a lot of the wines made east of the Rocky Mountains, they have this, softer, nice, but not very powerful style, which is lovely, but it's not the house style. Our house style defines what we plant and how we make it. So the first step in the journey is, what's your house style? And I wanted big, dry, massive reds. In order to get there, I had to get rid of the water. And that's when I started the process where we dry our grapes. So most wineries, when they bring the grapes in, when the ripening cycle is over, they process them in the winery. So they press them because we're in the tank. We take those grapes and stick them in our drying rooms for like 5 days, and then they lose about a quarter of their weight. They become very desiccated, and then we press them. And that's what we lose. So every year we're losing 25% of our entire production.
Really?
Yeah.
25% is a lot.
Do the math. So if we're at 6,000 cases, that's 1,000 cases. A case is 12 bottles. That's 12,000 bottles. $30 a bottle. It's 500,000 that disappear in 5 days.
Wow.
Brutal.
But I guess it helps with the wine, right?
Yeah, the quality is immensely, right? We have some of the highest rated reds in the entire East Coast, right? And our wines routinely beat their Italian cousins in Italy in a blind tasting. But that's the price you have to pay. Now, if we were in an arid place, right? Or you go to California or Tuscany or Australia, the grapes dry out on the vine because there's no humidity. So I'm trying to replicate what happens naturally because we can't do that here.
Got it. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
And so because these are all like Italian-based wines, correct? So are Italian-based wines more tannic than other ones like French wines and of that sort?
Well, French and Italian wines are similar to each other. They're different from California and Australia. Okay. So in Europe, they make something called the table wine. And in California and Australia, they tend to make something called a social wine. So here's the difference. So if you go to Europe, anywhere in Europe, right, when you're having a cocktail, it's a cocktail. It's not wine. Wines are never served without food. When the United States, you started to see wines kind of creep into the cocktail scene. When people have cocktails, they want it to be softer with a little bit of sweetness to it. So what happened is in Australia, you started to see some residual sugar kind of creep into the wines.
Okay.
And that they became a social wine. European wines are table wines, meaning they're very tannic and dry. So therefore, they want food to go with it. So that social wine, table wine distinction and that's really your new world versus old world. We got it like that, right? We make old world style wines.
Okay, but we're in the new world because it's the United States.
Exactly. Right.
So like all of Napa Valley, that's more
new world.
New world.
Yeah.
Okay.
More of a bit more. And when I'm talking about social wines, they tend to be, overly fruity or have a little bit of residual sugar, which is generally a crowd pleaser. But if you have a big Napa cab, you can only have steak with it. It's not a wide range of food. European wines, table wines, you can have a lot of different foods with them.
Okay,
that's the difference.
I was curious about the pairing. Like, how does that? How do you go about if you have a food and knowing which wine to pair with? Is it just test trial and error? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there are some guys, right? Like tannins are what kind of soften up red meat. So if you're having red meat, then you probably want a red wine that has some higher tannins. Tannins are what dry you out, right? Then if you're having fish or something hot, you probably want to have like a sparkling or white so it's really about balance, right? So if you had a white wine with the steak would overwhelm the wine. If you had a red wine with the fish, the wine would overwhelm the food. So it's really about balancing.
Okay.
And believe it or not, it's a good question. The thing that drives me absolutely fucking what thing that drives me crazy, right?
You can cuss. It's
okay.
okay.
The thing that drives me fucking crazy is I'll go to the best restaurants because of my Wall Street job in New York or London, whatever, and then they give you the wine list and they expect you to order the wine before people order food. This makes no sense to me.
Okay.
Okay. So what we do, I order a bottle of sparkling for the table right away. So, it doesn't have to be champagne. It could be like, Prosecco or Cabernet. You're drinking something, you're chatting, the pressure's off, then you're thumbing through the menu. And then once everybody orders their food, then you have to order the wine.
Okay.
You always have to order the wine after the food. And since people, they're going to look at the menu, they're going to chat for a while, you have the sparkling right away. That kind of like puts everybody on a different timeline. Wonderful. Always do that.
So I saw, you should start. But if you're gonna go like have a red and a white within a dinner, you should go white first.
Yeah. So basically, with the appetizer course, generally white's a good bet. People are having salads or something white, right? And then with the main, it's usually meat or something heavy, which is the red course.
Okay. So sparkling and then a white and then a red.
Sparkling white, you're just kind of chilling out, right? No one looks at the menu right away. You're talking to your friends for the first 5 or 10 minutes, right? And some of us, like me, who don't want to drink a lot, you're like, come on, order some food, right? So get the sparkling to the table as soon as possible.
Okay, gotcha.
It tends to help a lot.
And then you finish with a dessert wine usually?
It depends.
Okay.
If I'm with my, my friends, yes. If with my wife's friends, they're like looking at their watch ready to go.
Oh, okay.
So it just depends who you're with, right? I love dessert wine, but I think this is the mistake when a lot of people order dessert wine is they order dessert that's sweet. So having a triple molten chocolate fucking cake, whatever, right? Problem is there's a lot of sugar in that. Well, dessert wines have a little bit of sugar in them. So the proper pairing, if you go to Europe, right, they always have cheese and dried fruit. That's their dessert course because you get the sweetness from the wine, not the dessert. Okay. If you're having sugar at dessert, then you don't need a dessert wine. It doesn't make any sense. You're in a sugar coma. Okay. That's the thing. And, it's healthier. I mean, fruit and dried cheese and cheese is fantastic with dessert wine. Nothing better.
Is there anything that's like, there's any food that you had that you know for sure, like never have a wine with it that you've ever had that you're like, there's just no wine that goes with this?
Well, I have wine with cereal, so that's not
okay, right? Yeah, like a breakfast, something like that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I've had wine with almost every meal my entire life. I started drinking wine when I was 7 at the table. That was normal, right? And by the time that I was, when you become, like 16, 17, you're starting to drink a lot. My friends are like, hey, let's get some wine. I'm like, I was like having milk, right? So, you're so conditioned to eat when you drink that you don't think about getting drunk with wine. You get drunk with other stuff. So I don't get it. I've been drinking. This doesn't make any sense to me. So wine is always a critical part of every meal. And the benefit of that wine at the mealtime, it kind of prolongs the meal. You're talking stories you probably told 5 times before, but you don't care. But you're kind of like having those personal friendship moments. That's the true value of wine. It slows everything down.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like it's probably a different sort of vibe when it comes to Europeans enjoying wine versus like Americans. Or like we don't really. It's kind of taboo to order a bottle of wine or just like order a drink at a lot of times, which it seems like it's more common in Europe just to, as soon as you sit down, order a bottle.
If you go to Europe and you look at lunch and dinner, everyone has wine on their table. I was in San Francisco, which is close to Napa, right? And I took some clients out to lunch, and I ordered some wine. They're like, dude, it's lunch. I'm like, dude, this is what I'm talking about. So even the United States is kind of sliding into this prohibition, anti-alcohol stuff, which is unfortunate because it kind of ebbs and flows, right? So it's unfortunate.
I was gonna say because I don't know if you know, like Gen Z they're saying we're the least drinkers out of any generation. Like we drink the least amount. So I don't know if there's any plan, or do you have like, is there any worry about that in the future?
Well, it's a good question because, the boomers are the main buyers of wine, as from when we were here last time. But the boomers were Gen Z equivalents 40 years ago.
Okay.
And the difference is, the reason why boomers drink a lot of wine is they have more disposable income. Okay. When I was that age and my buddies were that age, we were drinking Bartles and James out of a bottle, which is a sweet wine in a bottle with peach infusion shit, because we weren't eating. And once you introduce food to the equation, changes everything. Okay. And a lot of boomers have discretionary, so they're always eating out at steak restaurants, whatever. You're not going to have, if there's steak on the table, you're going to have wine. Pot. So I think I'm always hard on Gen Z with valid reasons, but even beyond that is they're on a different curve. So our view is in time they'll kind of once get some more disposable income, eat at a nicer restaurant, and they see the food starts to pair well with food. It's just a normal generational shift. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the Gen Z wine that you said you?
Yeah, so I need a way to draw people in, the Gen Zers, because I think the average age of my wine club is between 80 and dead. So I need to bring in a next generation of drinkers, and what I see is the Gen Zs, because they're new to wine. If you have any of my wines without knowledge of food pairing, they're brutal. I mean, they're drying, they're powerful, and they kind of don't get it. And I see that. Whereas I see the boomers, when they taste my wine, they're like, oh, this goes with such and such automatically. So how do I bring in, the Gen Zers? So what I did was, when I was in Italy on a business trip, I don't know, a couple years ago, I saw, everybody's drinking cocktails, right? The Gen Zers were drinking cocktails. Even in Italy, I saw that, right? And but I noticed they had botanical infused cocktails, which I had never heard of before. So I thought about it for a while. Then I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do that with wine. So we did. We took our sparkling rosé. This is normal wine, and we infused it with 1% of a extract. So the first one we came out with strawberry and basil.
Okay.
Right, botanical. And so it's sparkling rosé, a little bit of sweetness to it. Boom. I thought I'd sell experiment. Maybe we'd do 300 bottles or something. We sold 2,000.
Oh, really?
Just blew it out. And so now coming on April 12th, we're coming out with a flight of 4 different ones.
Okay.
You can have strawberry basil, peach and orange blossom, pomegranate and hibiscus, and watermelon and mint.
Really? Okay.
All in the sparkling rosé format. Oh. And so my hope is that when the Gen Zers come taste that, they might be like, well, tell me about that white Vermentino. And maybe they try that dry white and kind of get them on the journey. That's why I'm doing it.
Okay, yeah. That's true, because that's my gift wine. When I'm giving somebody a wine, I usually give them that one. So all my friends love it. So
yeah, it's kind of exactly. It's how you start them, right, on the journey. Yeah, so we're excited about it. So we'll probably do, if it does as well as I think it will do this year, we'll sell 10,000 bottles, I think.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's super popular. It's shocking.
So, is it mostly people buying wine here in person, or is it online sales? How's the split on that?
Yeah, so 99% are sold on the property, including shipping, right?
Okay.
So we don't really have distribution. And so we make 6,000 cases, right? Demand for our wine is about 8,000 cases. And so it's well ahead of what I can do. I told somebody the other day, I says, 10 years from now, we're making 6,000 cases. It's about making the wine better every year, doing some experimentation, because this is a new wine region. You don't know what the fuck's going on here. You have to do testing and shit, right? So that's what we're focused on. Okay. And my name's on the label, not some fanciful yellow kangaroo shit on the label, right? It's really, this is pride of ownership here.
So is that the most that you could produce? So is that you're at, I guess, capacity for the vines and everything like that? Everything is planted, all the land is planted?
I own another 65 acres. Up the hill.
Oh, really?
Up to the top of the mountain.
Okay. Yeah, so you haven't done anything with that
Future
yet.
generations.
Really? Okay.
I'm done writing checks. I just want to drink with my friends. But it's there. The potential was there.
Really? Wow. Okay. So future generations. So
my land is there. Yeah, and the infrastructure is there. They just have to, take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did actually, believe it or not, I had a 25-year business plan when I started this in the year 2000. The first one was to establish the vineyard, that we had some sort of credentials, and that was the first 15 years. The second part was to buy the land around me and sell it to my family friends. So Dr. Piccioni next to me at Piccioni Vineyards, and the folks who own Sotrio, and the folks that own Barone, all were family friends, and I bought and sold the land to them. So now we have 4 Italian vineyards adjacent to each other. None like anywhere in the world do you have that, and all have 4 tasting rooms, and they all have something very unique in common. We all grow a couple grapes in common, so you could taste 4 different Mapachanos, 4 different Vermentinos. It's fantastic. That was the first part of the 25 years. Okay, which established myself. The second part was to get my neighbors up and running. And the third part is what we're doing right now. We're breaking ground for the food and the lodging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there'll be food and lodging soon. That's what one of my friends, she loves this place, but she was like, the one thing I wish they had is charcuterie board.
Yeah, the restaurant's going to have like pizzas, paninis, pastas.
Really, to go with the wine.
Yeah, right across from the villa. And the lodging will be, we got some high-end glamping. Gen Z years fucking love glamping, right?
Oh, what is it called?
Glamping.
Well, I don't know what that is.
How do you not know this shit, man?
I don't know what glamping is, actually.
Glamour camping, glamping.
Glamour camping,
yeah,
okay.
It's really high-end, right? So you have the super high-end tent with like Egyptian cotton sheets and electricity and stuff.
But you're camping.
How do you not know fucking glamping?
I don't know what glamping is. I've never heard of
fucking
glamping.
Google it, for God's sake. Anyway, it's really high-end and shit. And so we'll have a place that, you visit all 4, eat, sleep, never leave the property. That's the goal for the day. Yeah.
So do you guys have any type of is there like a tour that you can do all 4, or is it just kind of like you go how you want? Like, is it up to individuals, or do you guys have something set up?
Well, we have something set up, and we actually had a company approach us about getting like one of those golf carts that hold like 10 people, one of those really long ones, and driving them from, once they park somewhere and they hit all 4.
Oh, okay.
It makes good sense, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that. So the journey is wonderful, and the restaurant and the lodging should be operational middle next year.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Me too. Because people are always hungry and they're grumpy because they don't want to drive home.
Mm-hmm. That's true. What's your favorite part about owning a vineyard?
Seeing, meeting new people, okay, but seeing their reaction when they come up here. Because, you drive up from Charlotte. It's only an hour 10 outside of Charlotte, assuming you didn't hit traffic because you were so late for this podcast. But assuming when you come up, people are like, oh my God, it's beautiful up here. I can see the mountains, Virginia border. I didn't think this. So what I love is when people come here is what I notice, which is my goal, is they slow down. All right, they're hanging out, they're talking to friends. There's a reason there's no Wi-Fi connection here, because I want you to, be old school. And when I get the emails from people, they don't tell me about the wine. They don't tell me anything other than the wonderful friendships that they had when they were here. To me, that's why I did it. No question about it.
So what's the worst part about owning a vineyard?
The worst part is we're so hostage to the weather here. Because if you're in California or Australia or whatever, the weather is predictable. Here it's unpredictable. You have a hurricane like Helene come through and blow people's vineyards out, or we get a late frost. So, the grapes are the most sensitive things that you can grow. If I have a grape that's facing north and put another grape literally at a different angle adjacent to it, the grape's going to taste different.
Really?
I know, right? Whereas if you're growing corn or wheat, it doesn't matter, right? So, and then you have this weather variation. So the most stressful part, the challenging part, is the weather. You really shouldn't grow grapes east of the Rocky Mountain. You're fighting nature the entire way. Whereas over there, out west, it's easy, right?
So why'd you choose North Carolina?
For a couple of reasons. I work on Wall Street, right? So that kind of ruled out the West Coast. And then if I was just looking at the East Coast, there's only 3 places you could grow grapes at 25 years ago. The first is the Finger Lakes, which is the northern part of New York, right? Near the Finger Lakes. But it's quite cold up there, and they usually make whites. And then you have the North Fork of Long Island, A little bit warmer, but it's still kind of cold, and they have some reds there. And then you have Virginia, which is very famous for wine. Just beyond its bounds is Virginia. So we're a continuation of Virginia wine spine.
Really? So it needs to be, they're all roughly close to the coast. There's nothing internal.
Yeah, the further internal you go, then, because the closer to body of water you are, the more it moderates your temperature.
Okay.
Which is why if you're in the beach in the winter, it's not that cold and it's not that hot. Whereas if you're in Charlotte, it's hot and cold, right? So you want to be relatively close to a body of water, which is why when you're in the center of the country, it's brutal. I mean, you know how it is, like Iowa, Illinois, it's like minus 30. All the vines would die. Yeah. Shit like that. Right?
Okay. So is there a temperature that's like once it hits that temperature, like too low, like what is?
So it depends when it hits.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're very sensitive to late frost. So in 2011, we had, usually the last frost date here is April 15th.
Okay.
Then the vines start to, grow a lot. And we had a last frost on May 16th.
Really?
We lost 80% of the crop. And there is no second crop. That was it. Nothing. Boom. That was it. You can cover from anything, but a late frost is devastating. So April and early May, we're on high stress mode.
I was like, because there's nothing really you can do about that because it's in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I mean, so like some of the guys, they have what they call smoke pots. They're trying to, and they have helicopters that just circle the property all day long. Nothing works. They have windmills that move there. Nothing. Zero. You just gotta give it up to the higher power.
What about? Is there any like wildlife issues or anything like that?
So the whole property is deer fenced in. Okay. Right. The deer would wipe me out because we're on the side of a mountain, right? So it's quite wooded here. They would feast. Well, my neighbor didn't want to put up a deer fence, and then they wiped him out. And he's like, "Yeah, put up a deer fence."
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what they eat is well in excess of the cost of a fence.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a deer.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, deer. I guess that would be
wipe us out.
Yeah. So if someone like myself, I guess, were my age, about to taste like wine for the first time, what advice and I guess what knowledge or information should I know about wine before I even start indulging?
Well, the first thing is never buy a wine glass that has no stem, because stemless wine glasses are the stupidest thing ever invented. And never, ever, ever hold it by the bowl. Always hold it by the stem. And the reason is wine should be served at room temperature, which is 57 degrees. Your hand is 98.6, or you're warming up the wine. So even if you don't have a wine cellar, a lot of mistakes is people put the white in their fridge and they pull it out. It's like 44 degrees. It's too cold. So you can leave reds or whites outside in a normal thing, but just put them in the fridge for like an hour. Get it to that 57 degrees. It changes the whole taste of the wine. Okay. So really, I think when you really want to get into that wine journey, what I would do is have a couple of friends with you, and so have a white and a red, or a couple of whites, couple of reds, and have food to go with each of them. Okay, and then have a bite of the food, and then have a sip of the wine, and then do both at the same time, and you see how they marry up. And then you just talk about it. That's really wonderful, I think, and I encourage more people to do that. But don't do it by yourself, because wine's about what do you get, what do I get, sort of stuff. I don't understand it. Then when you're all at the table, I think it makes a profound difference. I really do.
Yeah, it seems like wine's more of a group activity.
It is.
Versus a solo endeavor. It is.
Most people don't drink wine by themselves, but because most people eat with others. The thing about Europe too is they don't eat at their desk at work. They go out to lunch. That's the big difference. They always go out to lunch. They don't, get a Jimmy John's or whatever you fucking call it, right? Eat at the desk and that's it. No, they go out to lunch. They hang with their friends. The reason that Europe is so much a happier place and they live longer is because they spend more time with their friends. And you don't do that when you're sitting at your desk at work. It's a bad outcome.
So you moved here, correct?
So I moved to North Carolina in 2008.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were in New York for how long before that?
Oh, since 85.
85.
Yeah, and I still work in New York. I fly back and forth, right? Oh, yeah. I did working from home before working from home was cool.
Yeah, now it's everybody's. I mean, they're leaning back away from work from home somewhat.
Yeah. So my view of this is, I think forcing people back to what they call RTO, return to office, I think is kind of short-sighted, because a lot of people after COVID, they had life-changing things. You had a kid, you moved away for school, whatever, and to force them back, I think is bad, because you want to have the best workers possible. And if you have a worker who's happy and super productive, but wants to work from home, let him work from home. I don't. This is a bad business decision. It's more of an ego thing, right? Than a business thing. So my company in New York, we would, anybody work. I got guys work in Tennessee, Florida. If I said you got to come back to New York, they'd be like, I quit, and then I lose a superstar. Yeah, it's bad business. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious about this because I'm sure it's a different mindset in New York versus Charlotte. Because Charlotte is second financial capital, but it's not as intense, I don't think, as New York for the most part. I guess, would you agree? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean, Charlotte's interesting. So I spent a year and a half in Charlotte. It was the very first part of my career before Wall Street, and it was grim. I mean, this is like 83 to 4. Downtown was at 7 o'clock. It's like a bomb went off.
Really?
No one there. The only restaurant open, I think, was like a Chinese restaurant, and I think they're like, the food score when you walk in, it was like a 71. Oh. It was bad, right? I was like, I'd never seen a score lower than 95. So it was nothing to do. And what's nice about Charlotte is how it's exploded. And I remember in 2008, people said, "Oh, Charlotte, big banking center, place is going to collapse." It didn't even miss a beat. It was like boom, back up. So Charlotte to me is a very interesting town. And what's nice is that, when I was there, it was because I actually lived in, it wasn't even called Noda. I was part of Charlotte. It wasn't even called Noda then. It was in South Park or Dilworth, right? And they all had the country clubs, and no one hung out downtown. And now you have this renaissance, which is the restaurants, the galleries. That's amazing. So Charlotte's a very vibrant downtown, which is the key to these cities right now. I love Charlotte.
Yeah.
Wonderful job there.
Because I was going to say, I mean, it's more family centric too. You can raise a family here versus New York. It seems like New York is a little bit more.
Well, New York's where you make the dough.
Yeah.
You make a lot of dough in New York. I mean, you can make more money in New York in 1 year you can make anywhere else in 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off. Right. And then, you can make a ton.
So if you went back to yourself in 1985, would you still went to New York?
Oh, absolutely.
Same thing?
Absolutely. Wouldn't try to second. So I started in 85. The movie Wall Street came out in 85.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And I was like, fuck Gordon Gekko, man. I'm going to eat this guy's lunch when I'm done with it, right? And so we started a company in 1990 with, 3 other guys. Now there's 117 people. We manage 11 billion. So it's been an enormous growth curve. Oh, we do that in New York. All right. Do it in New York.
Okay. Right. Do you think, I guess like if someone were, looking at owning or starting a vineyard, but like, let's say they're like had like a 10, 15 years, like not until then, what would you recommend or what would your suggestions be? What have you learned that you wish you could have passed on to your younger self?
That the vineyard will very quickly give you more grapes than you could turn into wine and sell. Okay, because the vineyard keeps giving you grapes every year. So the hard part, growing is hard, selling is harder. So you need to come up with, start with, I talk about your house style. So who do you want to attract? I want to attract people that know big wines, that's the starting point of your journey. I want to make the great wine. It doesn't say anything, right? So once you have the style of wine you want, that tells you what to plant, how to plant it, how to make it into wine, the whole thing. So the nexus is what style that you want to have. People really need to reflect on that. Now, North Carolina, you have to have 5 acres in order to make your own wine. That's the minimum by law, state law.
Okay.
So that's a figure. That's kind of like minimum skin in the game. So 1 acre will give you 700 bottles. So it's always saying, and this is, so look up, we're talking about, so maybe about 500, 400 to 500 cases, if you take care of it. So 5 acres is the minimum nut. And then you can have somebody else make your wine for you, send to another winery, they'll make it for you, and then you could sell it. So you don't have to build a winery; you just have to have 5 acres planted.
Okay.
Have a little tasting room, and then you're up and rolling. But an acre here costs like $10,000 an acre, and then it costs you $10,000 to establish it with the vines and the posts and the irrigation. So you're talking $20,000 an acre, and then you got to maintain it. Right, so this is where it gets expensive. Right.
So did you already know about? I guess I don't know what the term is for. I guess like having a degree in like.
No.
That. So how'd you go about?
Well, I had a degree in drinking wine. That was my spending a lifetime, because in Wall Street, I'd travel around the world, taste the best wines. I always visited wine regions. But the interesting thing back then was we didn't have a lot of colleges around here. So it was because I need workers. Okay. And what's coming up in the last 20 years is we have a School of Fermentation Science in App State. We have NC State does a lot of the ag stuff. We have a Surrey community that does a lot of very specific wine stuff. Then we have the UNC Bryan School of Business, which I'm on the board of, by the way, which does the hospitality. None of this shit existed 20 years ago.
Really?
Zero.
Okay.
And so having people that want, because what you would see is the first people that came before school, they just wanted a job. And now people see it as a career. They want to be in the industry. They're passionate. They studied the industry. This is a dramatic transformation when I first started. So what I would encourage someone to do when they want to get on their wine journey as opposed to the vineyard journey first is, a lot of these wine shops, they have, wine tastings that are free. Go there. Taste the wine. Usually you have a wine representative there. Ask them, what type of grape is that? How old is the vineyard? How do they make that wine? And you really start to learn. So I'll tell you something about me. The only alcohol that I've had in 45 years is wine. Nothing else. 45 years. Zero.
Really?
Nope. No beer, nothing. So I can drink a lot of wine because you build up an affinity for it, but I can smell wine like this, look at it, I know what the wine was, what year it was, pretty much that's just training, right?
Really?
Yeah, that's part of the passion, right? Yeah.
So is that
why I can drink so much wine and you can't?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Training. It's kind of like if you do push-ups every day for 45 years, one sit-up and you collapse. So if I had a beer, I'd probably be on the floor almost instantaneously because I have no tolerance for it.
Do you not enjoy any of those, or you're fully focusing on wine?
I just love wine.
Okay.
And then as I started to see that, I started to pick up the nuances in wine. Okay, well, I know what this is. Right. Then I kind of think, well, I'm not so stupid after all. So I can have conversations and stuff like that. And so if you ever go to a restaurant, don't hesitate. They don't have so many sommeliers anymore like they used to. But, if you're not sure what to order, say, who here knows the wine program, and have them come over and say, this is what we're thinking about eating. What do you recommend? Don't ask them what they recommend without you knowing what you eat. That's the right. And then okay, they say, why do you say that? Okay, well, how about this? How about that? They love that. No one ever talks to them. Otherwise, they say, hey, give me a Cabernet from Napa.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they'll engage, and that would be quite educational for you guys too. Yeah.
Have you had a favorite wine that's not Italian?
Yeah, so I love this grape. It's called Carmenere, and it grows in Chile.
Okay.
I adore. And then there is a grape from Uruguay, also South America, called Tanat, which we also grow here. Right. So I love reds. I'm obsessed with reds. Right. White is something that you brush your teeth with. Right. And for me, it's about the reds, and I love wines that are well made and powerful. So some people have, I generally don't like Pinot Noir because it's a very soft wine. And I like wines that have some, what they call smash mouth quality to them. But I generally South American wines I love the most. And they're very good value. Napa's a cult, too expensive. I mean, some of the prices right now are almost offensive.
Really?
Even to a wine person, yeah. They're selling a brand, right? So.
Yeah, I've heard it's also because California, I mean, a lot of them are still relatively new, so they might have to be paying off that land still versus European or other places. The land's been in the family for centuries, so they're not having to worry about that extra expense.
Yeah, I see you did some research finally.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, so
that's true. And so I think I would encourage your, what do they call it, podcasters? What do you call somebody that listens to your podcast? Do they have a term?
Listeners.
Listeners? Okay.
Yeah, just call them listeners. Yeah.
Fucking glamping it. So why am I asking you anyway?
You can say viewer, I guess.
Yeah,
that
viewer.
Too. Viewer, listener.
Yeah. So to start the journey, and the journey is not linear, right? I mean, you're gonna there's always some craft bullshit that kind of diverts you and stuff. But when you're at the table, eating a nice meal, you're having wine. That's what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And don't hesitate to talk to the wine professional, but always always order a bottle of sparkling. $20, Prosecco, whatever, Cava from Spain. Perfect, right? Take the food order and then bring him over. You know what they'll say? They're like, hey, those young people really know about food and wine. Because they're asking me after that will impress them. And then they'll have a different conversation. Otherwise, they'll say, have you had a Pinot Grigio or some, shitty Chardonnay with sugar in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, do that, and then you'll have a different experience at the restaurant as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to. I mean, I'm new to the whole world of wine. Roughly,
I could tell from when I saw you.
It's been. I think I came here first time in probably August of 2024. So still relatively.
It's been downhill ever since, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, I really enjoy it. So what's your favorite wine you've ever produced? Do you have one?
Yeah, so it's the Patrimonio,
okay.
which is as my father's picture on the label.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, this is our attempt to make a wine that can shock people, and it's the highest rated red made east of the Rocky Mountains right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's 94 points. Yeah, it's just a killer wine, and it's really meant to say, if you really care, you're all in it. It's your every waking moment you think about. You can do something special. And my view is, if what you're doing isn't consuming you, then you shouldn't be doing it. Okay, life is too short. It doesn't like we live to be 500 fucking years, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what you do, if you're sweeping the streets, you want to be the best street sweeper possible. Otherwise, you're just wasting your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so have something that consumes you. Podcasting consumes you. Make it all in, right? And I speak to these, Wall Street job. We always get these, Harvard, Stanford, all these people that want to work for us and stuff. And I tell them, listen, I said, if you follow your wallet as opposed to your heart, bad things will happen. When you follow your heart, your wallet follows you because you're passionate and successful. So don't always say, oh, this guy pays me $5 an hour more than this guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, where are you going to have that happiness? Because when you're productive and happy, you will be successful, and then everything follows you along that journey.
That's a good word of advice.
Trust me. I won't let you down. Easy to get, shiny object popping out now and then, but you shouldn't have it too.
So don't chase the dollar.
Chase the happiness, not the dollar.
Not the dollar.
The dollar will follow the happiness.
Okay.
But happiness never follows the dollar. Truly.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound, but trust me, it's the case.
No, I'm sure you're aware. So how does the pricing work for wines? How does that?
That's the third rail, right? You remember the third rail? Because I figured you'd know that because you don't fucking glamping and shit. So,
no.
The way subway tracks work is the New York thing, right? You have the two rails here, and the third rail is the one that's electrified. So
Okay.
he says that shit's the third rail. You're like, don't touch that, right? Because you're going to die. So the third rail is pricing. So if you take the most expensive property in the world with the most expensive way to make it, the most expensive way to bottle it, the whole thing, it's impossible for that wine to be cost you more than $40. Impossible. It's impossible.
Really?
The difference between $40 and that level is what you're willing to pay for it. So their bottles of wine itself for $800 to $1,000 a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't cost them more than $50 to make on the high. So that's, like a painting, I go over there. How much is that painting? It's like it's a piece of wood and paint. It costs probably $5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so how much do you pay for that? So the difference between this is when you separate cost versus value. I ascribe a value to this at X. So when it comes to pricing, you either have it just depends. A lot of it's on the brand power. Okay. Oh, it's screaming ego. It's Mondavi, so it's got to be good, right? Listen, if I put two sweaters next to each other side by side, and you saw them, identical sweaters, one was $40, one's $60. What's the better sweater? $60. Because why? Because it costs $60.
Yeah.
So that's the game theory when it comes to pricing.
So is there any telltale signs that's like you could see that this wine, like if you're at shopping and you're like, okay, this wine is definitely probably not good, or like this one is probably good, versus just looking at the price?
Well, anything with an animal on it that's like floating with balloons is a bad wine. Right?
Okay, animal floating with
with
balloons.
like a name with like Cupcake or some stupid name like that, right? Or Barefoot, right? Those are not serious wines. But the reality is price and quality are not correlated to each other. You just kind of got to get to know, because I've had killer bottles that were $15. Take them to South America, just killers. And then I've had horrible $80 bottles of wine that were insipid. So I think this is why you want to get to know the producer and what's his house style, and then you know what to expect. Okay. So if you want to come here when you want to have softer wines or sweet wines, you're disappointed. Yeah. That's not who we are. And that's tough, because there's thousands and thousands of producers out there, which is why it's always good to start locally, as you can see things and then kind of move out from there.
Based on that. Okay.
And by the way, talking about local, the thing about craft beer, this is the biggest bullshit ever made. Okay? No one ever asks these guys where the hops and barley come from. No one ever come from Washington State. Yet, 99% come from Washington State. They don't grow their own hops or barley here. No. Yet somehow they're craft local guys. The first thing people ask me, did you grow these grapes? Okay? Okay? The hard part's growing shit. Yeah. Okay, so those guys get a free pass, or a bunch of losers, those craft beer guys. Try to grow shit around here. That's the tough part. You can tell them I call them losers, by the way. They are. They get a free pass. They're not craft anything. Yeah. If I bought my grapes from Napa Valley, I would have been run out of town as a fraud. Yet they can do that. Forget it. Yeah. Hate those guys.
So is there any, well, I guess like, how does that, because do you have one that's a non-vintage, correct?
Yeah, so so in the U.S., what it means is the labeling laws are very strict in the U.S. when it comes to wine, more than any other alcohol. So the law is that in order to call a wine made in the year, it must be 95% that year. Okay. So, for example, we made a wine that is only 90% that year, so we had to call it a non-vintage, because the year is known as a vintage. Okay. And so the law says we have to make it a non-vintage. Okay. And so there's three levels of the law. 95% must be the same year. 85% must be from the same region. 75% must be the grape. Okay. So if I'm calling it Merlot, it must be 75% Merlot. If I'm calling it Merlot from Sonoma, it must be 85% Sonoma. If I'm calling it Merlot Sonoma from 2022, it must be 95%. 75, 85, 90. Okay. And if you don't make the 95 threshold, you declare a non-vintage, which happens a lot. If you don't make the 85% threshold, and if you're in Sonoma, maybe call it California wine. You see a lot of California wines. And if you're below the 75%, you can't call it the name of the grape. You call it like, Happy Elephant Balloons wine.
So is that where blend comes in when they say blend? Yep. Or is that something else? Yep. Okay.
You can blend. If you blend past more than 75%, you can't call it the name of the grape. Really? So it's like another wine's called very fancy wine. It's called a conundrum. All right, it has like 9 different grapes blended in it. It just says conundrum. You don't know the 9 grapes in it. Okay? But if it was 75%, you say Chardonnay.
Would you suggest to steer away from any type of blends or anything like that, or is there some?
Well, I think blends are superior.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at California, just look at U.S. laws. You can call a Napa Valley cab a cab as long as it's 75% Cabernet. So the percentage of wines that come from Napa Valley that are 100% one grape are zero.
Really?
Just think about it. I mean, if you're cooking, okay, and you want to add a little salt and pepper, but you can't, it's going to make the food taste better. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that profoundly impacts the wine. I mean, we had this event in November you should come to called Assemblaggio, where I blend 5 different wines at a time with you guys. What you see is that a 1-2% difference of another grape could impact the other 98% in ways you wouldn't believe.
Really?
Yeah. But that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. One of the best wines in the world is a wine made in France. It's a blend of 13 different reds. 13
different reds. Wow.
Chateauneuf du Pape.
Okay.
Yeah, which means the new house of the Pope. Yeah.
It has 13. Oh, wow.
13 reds. And the percentages change all the time.
Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be, that would be, I feel like that'd be harder to balance, right? Like because, I mean, some wines, they're roughly going to be the same or close to the same thing when you get the next year or the next.
And the weather's different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's hotter. It tastes different. Merlot tastes different from last year because the weather's different. Maybe you want a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the joy that I love about this job is the blending to come up with the final components. I mean, and when you have, and remember, when we're saying that this wine tastes good now, it's going to taste different 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that's unique about wine is it's the only alcohol that's alive in the bottle. So what makes bourbon and scotch and whiskey and all this stuff great happens before it's in the bottle, in the barrels and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's in the bottle, it's never going to change because the alcohol is so high. There's nothing going on. What makes it special is the oxygen's passing through the barrel. Okay, wine, the alcohol is 12, 13, 14%. It's changing in the bottle. So what makes it, you can open a bottle of, bourbon whiskey and it's going to taste the same now. It's going to taste 5 years from now. Wine, radically different. So we're coming up with a wine. We're trying to figure out when our customers drink this wine and what the wine should taste like. That's the art. The rest is science.
Is there like a drop off where you're like, okay, this is too old for a wine, or does that depend on the grape? Or
it depends on and who made it, right? I mean, I had a wine, that was a 23-year-old white wine. It was fantastic. Blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a German Riesling. Couldn't believe it. Fantastic. So it just depends. Depends on, like if you get a wine made by, Buttercup or whatever those stupid wines are, it's not going to make it till next week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's different.
Is there any grapes that you plan to grow in the future? Like that's next on the...
Yeah, so I've ripped out my entire vineyard 3 times. So I've ripped out 100,000 vines because, it's not because it's a new wine region. You don't know what you're supposed to do. You go to California, you know what you're supposed to do. Russian River, you're planting Pinot, Napa, you're planting Cab. So there's no roadmap here. So we have to do trial and error. And I planted a couple of new Northern Italian grapes, and I think that they'll really show well. One's called Tiraldigo, which is an Italian red, and it borders on the area between Italy and Austria. And then I'm planting another white called Greco di Tufo, which is kind of outside of Romish. Yeah.
Okay.
Always experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
So what was because you said 2008 you said was or 6 was the horrible year with the late frost? 2011. So what's been the best year?
That's easy. 2023.
Really? 2023.
Perfect. And you want to know what a good year for us is? When you're walking around and you see a lot of lawns that are like burned and charred because there's no rain, we're the happiest guys in the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If you see a lot of lush lawns where people are mowing all the time, we're on suicide watch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Rain is our enemy, followed by humidity.
Okay.
23 was bone dry and super hot. We haven't had a vintage like that, a harvest like that in 23 years. Yeah. Extraordinary.
Really?
And those wines are coming out in 2026.
All right.
There's something else. I see in the barrel like, fuck. Next year, they're so powerful. I got to wait another year.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. They're absolutely monstrous wines.
Is there, I guess, how do you, you said there's how many people come through here? Like 20,000?
20,000 a year.
20,000. So where are most of them getting, like, you're finding out about Raffaldini?
Yeah, so, being guys like almost 100 years old, I still have a fax machine. So I guess faxing people is not very good right now. Mm-hmm. So It's really through our wine club. It's a big word of mouth, and they take, pride to show people that, hey, this got made in North Carolina. Those are serious producers. And then they bring up their Gen Z kids, and the Gen Z kids are kind of starting their journey. So we don't really do a lot of advertising at all, mostly because, we're always sold out of stuff, right? So our goal is to really have everyone, when they do come up, have a good experience. Explain to them what we do, have them enjoy the view and that stuff. So it's really just word of mouth.
Okay.
We have, Instagram and all the other bullshit, right? But not that, don't pay attention to that stuff. It's for your generation and stuff.
Yeah.
TikTok or whatever that stuff.
Yeah, TikTok, right. Snapchat and all that.
Yeah. I don't even know I don't know what that means. But yeah, somehow I know glamping, you don't go glamping. It's just kind of like a conundrum to speak of that you know about that stuff. So we're not trying to discourage visitors, but I want them to sort of come and enjoy their time. And there's so we're 21 and over. We don't allow kids, and no dogs, right? Lead that to the breweries so they can run around like crazy people and forget it, right? I want people to relax when they come here, because again, it's about spending time with the people when you're drinking wine. You shouldn't be on, this or road dogs, kids running around. So we caught a little bit of heat when we made that transition 5 years ago to no dog, no kids, and for the people who had dogs and kids. People don't. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever come up. Exactly. Our neighbors allow dogs and kids.
Okay, so you go there.
They'll even allow you to bring a donkey and fucking barbecue shit, right? But we're hardcore stuff. If you go to Italy, they don't bring dog. You go to even Napa or Sonoma, they don't have dogs or kids. It's 21 and over. That's the point of it, right?
Quality over quantity.
Always. Yeah.
So you're a managing director, correct, and global head of sales at UBS?
Yep, I'm one of the partners, yeah.
Can we get into that? So what does that entail?
So I started a hedge fund with 3 guys a while back. And most of my career I was on the trading and investing side. And then, eventually the investors want to talk to somebody. And most of the traders are, right brain, left brain sort of stuff. And I was kind of like the client-friendly guy. They could take the clients out to dinner, explain what was going on in the portfolio. And then next thing I know, they say, can you do this full time? So I kind of left the trading side, investing side, to kind of deal with all the clients. So our offices now are in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, London, Zurich, Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, and Shanghai.
Really?
Big group.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot.
Quite a size.
And I travel all the time.
And that started in
2000.
That started in 2000.
Yeah, we started, yeah. So if ever you want to look at my life journey, just watch my TED Talk. It's called Be a Jellyfish. It talks about my whole so my goal in life, not to preempt the TED Talk, was I just wanted to make as much money as possible and follow Jimmy Buffett around to the day I died, because I was a parrot head. I still am a parrot head, right? And then life gets in the way of that stuff. And then I didn't even know North Carolina. North Carolina is nothing to me. I'm a New Yorker. I only discovered North Carolina when I wanted to make wine. Other than that, it just was a purely accidental thing. So, but you have to be open to those changes in life. That's why you got to watch my TED Talk.
Yeah.
Don't. Be a jellyfish.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, you didn't
right?
know.
Exactly.
Nothing about jellyfishes.
No, which is the freaky part. Right? I was like, what's going on? There's no jellyfish
Has
here.
nothing to do with the jellyfish.
That's the art of a great story. It's got nothing to do with the title, right?
That's a good way to get them hooked in.
Exactly.
So what's your opinion on a work-life balance? Because I'm sure when you were on Wall Street, I'm sure you probably didn't have that much of a work-life balance. So it's more work. Do you think, like, because I know some people don't really believe in it. They're like, hey, you should just fully pursue something, or like you can't, there's not always going to be a balance. Like, it's like maybe you work really hard for 5 years and then you have the life balance on the other side. So what's your...
So, I would look at your life in like 10-year increments, right? Okay. So in your 20s, you're trying to figure out, what you want to do with your life. And in your 30s, you figured out, and then you're on the journey to establish yourself. And in your 40s, you kind of become the guy in that space. Then in your 50s, you're just kind of like the work-life balance kind of shifts over. So in your first 10, 15 years, You just got to put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no shortcuts. But the time is just not just hard work. It's building your network. Your network is everything. Who you meet, because you'll have a group of friends that are equally ambitious, but and they will go up with you, and that's your network.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I think this is the problem with working from home is a bit tricky, because you don't have a chance to build your network. When you're working shoulder to shoulder with somebody, I get it, right? But it's not for the company's benefit. Sometimes it's for your benefit, because you're starting to build that franchise.
Yeah.
Because it's the old thing. There's no I in team, right? You go up together, but you want to build that team, and you build that by spending time. So you just got to put the skin in the game.
Yeah.
But then you got to know when to unplug. A lot of my friends have not been able to unplug yet. They're 67-year-old miserable fucking bastards with a lot of money. Don't have any friends, don't have any downtime. You got to be careful when you achieve that level of success to pull that plug. Very hard.
Yeah.
Because you're making all this money, and you're like, oh, well, dude, life is short. But that's the hardest part of the journey. Believe it or not. And you all get there. All you guys will get there. You guys will make a lot of money, be successful, but you got to know when to turn the page. It's hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like when you're pursuing something, just to stop it or like retire, and so they say.
No, it's tough. But like Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, right? He had something, always leave them wanting more. Okay, he left at the top. You don't want to overstay your welcome.
Yeah,
that's the bad one. Like, why is this old guy hanging around here, right? Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard in life.
So you've been through. So I guess they're kind of like, because grapes are kind of like I guess like, because I was listening to the podcast you were on with Life in the Carolinas, and you're talking about how grapes are kind of like in their growing age of like the first 15, and then they kind of mature, then they hit their peak. Yeah. So it's just.
Well, they're kind of like us, right? So if you take care of your grape, it can last 80 years.
Yeah.
So the first 10, 15 years are kind of like a snotty adolescent you want to pummel, because they just ignore you, right? Do their own thing. And then the years kind of like 20 to 35, you're like, okay, they're not a juvenile delinquent after all. There's some hope that they could be something in society. And then in 35, kind of like the 50, they're like, okay, oh, that pain was good. They're really doing things. And then after 50, they kind of begin a slow, gradual decline.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our life, right? Because we should define who we are by the time we're 50, right? And who we're going to be. And the grape should tell me, this is the style of wine I'm going to make by the time we're 50. Problem is, I'm going to be dead by then, right? Well dead, because but that's where the second and third generations come in, and they're kind of like living off of the effort that you did, right?
Do you have I mean, this is, I guess, like the form of generational wealth. Do you ever worry about that getting diluted? You see that with big families all the time, where like the next generation or like their grandkids, they lose it all. So like, do you ever have a worry about that, or like, have you tried to implement anything to make that sure that doesn't happen? No,
because I'll be dead. Everybody come back from the grave and haunt them and shit, right?
Yeah.
People, this comes up all the time. Oh, what happens? I don't give a shit. I'm dead.
Yeah.
So life is your journey, and you got to make it. Every day should be the best. And because, as you get older, a lot of your friends kind of like die for no reason, right? Some disease or some accident stuff. And then you don't want to be one of those people that look back in life and like, fuck, I should have done that. Don't be like that.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, like, oh, but your daughter sells it to developers. It's not fucking dead. What do I care? So for me, I don't even worry about this stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of my friends obsess about it incessantly. Yeah. They put trust, irrevocable trust, and codicils. I'm like, I don't even fucking mind. I don't understand it.
Don't want to worry about it.
Don't understand it at all. Wait, you're dead.
That's true.
I've yet to meet anybody that came back from the grave and told them that their living children were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That happens. I'd be very happy to meet that person. It's just stupid.
No, I get that. Yeah, I guess that's a good mindset to have, because I always think, I know people are always worried about the next generation. Like, oh my God, what if all of my hard work was for nothing? It's like,
no matter. All your hard work allowed you to live this life. Right? I mean, you don't owe anything to your future generations. You just give it to them. What they do with it is up to you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so when I wake up and I say to myself, I woke up, today's a good day. Okay, and don't worry about those other days in the future. That's just a waste of karmic energy.
Yeah.
Just a waste of time.
Waste of time. So, what? I guess you've been through. I guess back towards like the investing side, you've been through multiple stock market crashes. I guess what was it? Black Monday.
Black Monday.
Black Monday. .com housing crisis. COVID. Was there any advice to young investors about how to go throughout that?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple things of advice. The first is what a friend of mine told me once. He goes, buy things that when you drop them, they hurt your foot. Okay. So buy things that are really intangible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Bitcoin now. That shit can go to zero overnight.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing behind it, right? Yep. So the key, so what you want to do is when you're looking at your own wealth, I hate to say it, you want to buy a low-cost index fund, like an ETF at the S&P 500, and forget you own it, and put in $100 every month or however much, and then forget it.
Yeah.
Because over time, life does get incrementally better. I mean, you have valleys. Like we have one right now. DC is a big valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, things recover, and then you just want to participate in that. So don't So if you want to try a flyer on some stupid thing like Bitcoin or some stock, that's okay. But the core should be in a little index fund. Put it away, add to it, and then you have the fun stuff on the side. But that's going to slowly grow and grow and grow and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're going to get it. So, it's okay to do the fun stuff, but do the boring stuff too. Because the boring stuff keeps you at the game.
Yeah. Just set it and forget it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And always add to it. No matter what the market does, just add to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, you got a lot of money.
Yeah. Just don't think about it. Because I know the instinct is to sell as soon as you see.
Yeah. So historically, when you guys are selling, I'm buying.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys are buying, I'm selling.
Really? Okay.
We actually track retail activity a lot.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And
right now, we've been selling up for the past 3 weeks.
Are retail investors usually wrong most of the time?
They're always wrong.
Always wrong?
They're always wrong. Because we have unlimited power. We have unlimited computing power. We have informational networks with everything at our disposal. And you're going to compete against us when you look at something on a part-time basis off of Wall Street Bets or Reddit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have computers that read that shit and tell us what you guys are going to do.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's so advanced now.
Oh, we have large language models. We have algorithms that just read this shit all day long.
Yeah. Yep.
We have, when a company announces their earnings, we have programs that read the CEO's facial expressions and the tone in his voice versus prior.
There's a lot of things that go into it. I know I've heard, there's some
you can't
crazy
beat that shit.
Yeah, you can.
Which is why you just buy it, hold it, buy the S&P and forget it.
Mm-hmm. Just
Don't try to
compete.
make money, George.
Yeah.
Because we're the guys that are killing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's Jim Simmons. He's the Renaissance. Like that fund is the like the ultimate. Oh, that work.
Excuse me, ladies. Hello. Sorry about that. Some strippers came in. I had to send them away.
That's what comes on.
He'll be available
Friday.
later. Okay. So I don't know if you know the story. So he's the most successful hedge fund ever. Started a hedge fund called Medallion, which is part of the Renaissance. You know what his claim to fame is? He was the lead code breaker in World War II. He broke the Nazi code. So what he does is he has 150 PhDs that work for him. Now, one is a PhD in finance. Chaos theory, pattern recognition stuff. So what his theory is that the market is very random, but in that noise, because code breaking is like detecting a pattern in noise. Wall Street is depicting a pattern in noise. He's the most successful hedge fund by far in the history of humanity. I think he's compounded at like 38% a year for the past 30 years. I mean, do the mathematics. It's absurd, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, is that?
That's the guy you're competing against. The retail investor for 2 hours a day.
Yeah, that's kind of because I've read up on him and just like the tactics and like no finance people, which I guess makes sense
because they're biased. if your PhD is in chaos theory or particle physics, you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? It's pretty impressive. The guy's unlike any other person I met.
Mm-hmm.
Really antisocial guy. You don't have a PhD in non-finance, he won't even talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay.
Really?
All right. Smokes like 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
I heard about that. Yeah.
He's a legend.
That's the guy that every, I guess, hedge fund looks up.
Yeah, because, well, and he still continues to beat everybody. Because, so if you want to get rid of guys like that, you have to do one thing and one thing only. The stock exchange, which trades in decimals, needs to go back to fractions. You didn't know that. Stock exchange used to trade in fractions.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, the lowest denominator was 1/8, which is 12.5 basis points. Okay. So these guys are very rapid traders. Okay. When your spread is 1/8, very hard, if not impossible, to make money. When they got rid of fractions, it went from 11 basis points, 10, now you're doing 1 basis point. So you should have a lot of day trading.
Yeah.
Okay. But when your minimum denominator is 1/8, day trading doesn't work.
Really? Okay.
You don't have to regulate. Just go back to that one thing, wipes out all these traders. That's simple.
When did that switch? Was that?
It was they called the Big Bang.
Okay.
It was the Big Bang. It was in 89. 89.
So that was right after.
Changed everything. And now they're going to 24-hour trading. In 87, when I was trading, when the market crashed, the only way you could tell was it was a ticker tape. You probably seen it, right? In the background? Yeah. That was 3.5 hours behind.
Oh, okay. So
that's okay. A huge day was 80 million shares in a day. Now we do well over 1.5 billion.
Really? So it's just completely different. Information moves so much different now.
It was easy to. I mean, it's brutal right now. Brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started on the trading desk, this is the guys on the desk with me. Vinny, Petey, Bobby, Louie. Nobody went to college. Okay, they all went to lunch and got drunk. The whole thing, right? And then what you started to see was as the markets became more efficient, fractions went by the way decimals. Vinny and Petey got replaced by two guys with quant degrees and computers that didn't go out to lunch. And I thought to myself, this is the beginning of the end of the fun time. And with that changed everything. Yeah. And those guys are gone, and the computer guys dominated now.
Just all quants running,
running
Wall Street.
Yep, all quants. 90% of all trading on the stock exchange is quant driven. 90%. 90.
What's your opinion on Warren Buffett's investment strategies? Do you feel like, I mean, because I feel like he follows the same thing of like you can drop it on your foot for the most part.
Yeah, exactly.
So just.
Yeah. What does he own? He owns railroads, power transmission companies, insurance. I mean, real intangible stuff. He hates Bitcoin as well, right?
Yeah.
Right. But what he does is he buys and he holds. His investment is like 10, 20 years, if not longer. Okay. So I'll give you a difference between a hedge fund person and a retail person. Okay. You buy a stock at 10. Stock goes to 12. You guys are taking profit. Okay. The stock goes to 12, we buy more.
Okay.
Goes to 14, we buy even more.
Okay.
16, we buy the most we can. Okay. Because the market's telling us we're right. Now, let's assume the stock goes to, you buy it at 10, it goes to 8. What do you guys do? Nothing. Like, oh, I can't sell now, I'll lose. We're out.
Yeah.
Without thinking, out. You can't personalize your losses. Okay, made a mistake, I'm out. Okay. The worst thing that you guys can do is to buy more of it.
Yeah, when it drops.
Averaging down is a recipe for bankruptcy. Because the market's saying, you're wrong, and I'm going to add to something that's wrong. You add to something that's right. So buying when something goes up is really hard, as opposed to taking money off the table. If you can remember that, then you're better than 99% of all the investors in the world.
Good to know. Is there any, like, I guess, would you suggest, because you have your MBA, so would you suggest going and pursuing that if you want to work in the field of finance, or should you go, I know there's like different routes you can take, like go to college and then go straight and work and then get your MBA later on, or What's your?
But it depends. So it depends on what your ultimate goal is. So some people, they do like a CFA or something like that, but that's a very pigeonholed thing. You're saying I'm a finance guy.
Yeah.
MBA is broad, right? So you can major in finance if you have an MBA, but you can also like MBA because this guy can run a company because he knows other stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends. And I see people all the time. Oh, I don't want to go to MBA. I want to do CFA. Then you're a fucking finance guy your whole life. But you need to know that. Right. So you can't run an organization that deals with HR, operations, compliance if you don't have exposure to those things. So for me in finance, to be a trader, you don't need an MBA, right? But you need to have a certain personality.
Okay.
To add to the winners and cut the losers, which very few people have that personality. I'm telling you right now, it's almost impossible.
Really?
If you would have bought Tesla at 100 and bought it at 200, most people would have bought it at 100. They probably, if they didn't add, they didn't sell it. Why aren't you adding? Right? And that's the part.
There's no emotion. Lots of you have to make emotional decisions.
Dollars and cents. There's no emotion. Right. So when we have on our trading floor, we actually have a therapist. It was kind of like in Billions, right? Where it's all about dealing with somebody who's got losses. Why are you hanging on to these dogs? Move on. Doesn't matter. You're wrong.
Yeah.
No, don't say the market's wrong. The market's never wrong. You're wrong. Okay, and it's tough. Trust me, it's tough. So, but I think in the day is discover what makes you happy and you love, and don't try to do the shit that you don't love because you think you should love it. It's a bad outcome.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of my generation is just chasing the money, but I think maybe hopefully we're getting better at it, but I don't know.
Well, it's hard, right? I mean, I think, every generation has their own issues, right? So my generation was the Vietnam War and then, 70s brutal inflation and shit. Gas lines, if you can believe that, right? And your generation is being displaced. Technology is your guy's greatest threat. It's a big job replacement stuff. That's tough. And, you had COVID to deal with, which kind of interrupted a lot of network building and shit. Yeah. Every generation has its own problem. Every generation overcomes it. In a different way. Yeah. This is why I'm kind of hard on the Gen Zs. I'm actually quite bullish on the Gen Zs because they're inheriting problems, but I think their mental capacity to solve these things is pretty high. So even though they don't drink enough wine, I think they can solve the problems.
Yeah, we'll get them. We'll get all the Gen Z on board with wine eventually. I think so. So what? I guess getting a little more personal. You're married, correct?
Yep.
So what marriage advice would you give me? What's something you wish you had at the beginning of your marriage?
Take your time. Take your time. Okay. Right. No one's perfect. All right. There is no Mr. Perfect, Mrs. Perfect, Ms. Perfect. Right. You just gotta, you want to find someone that's not the same as you. Because you reinforce each other's personalities. Want something that's different than you because you kind of like fill in the gaps of each other. So, to marry, for example, if I were to marry a woman who's a hedge fund, it would be a disaster. It's going to be a disaster, right? Instead, I married somebody that's like a yogi. She does all the stuff, remind me to slow down. And do this, okay, yeah. So find that person that gives you balance. Because in times, if you do the same thing, you're going to run into that valley every now and then you're not giving each other that equilibrium. So take your time, but find somebody that perhaps, because it's easy when in the same industry, you have natural chemistry to talk about somebody, right? The same things, right? Yeah. But when you find somebody that's different, I think that's one that's generally a keeper.
That's, I think, some solid advice. I'm going to have to implement that, I think.
Don't do somebody that's the same as you.
Yeah.
That's gasoline and gasoline.
Yeah.
Have gasoline in a pail of water.
I was just thinking about a husband and a wife that are both in a hedge fund.
In anything, right?
That sounds like a recipe for a disaster.
Yeah, it's like having two husband and wife that are like therapists. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, they're constantly analyzing each other. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, you got to get balance.
What about for parenting? What advice?
Well, because I have a daughter, and what I realize is she needs to make her own mistakes, as I did. Right? I mean, when I was in high school, my guidance counselor said to me, "Jay, you're only good for one thing: 30 days in the hole." That's what he said to me this morning.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was a fuck up, right? Because I didn't find the path I wanted to be on until I got to that point. And then I realized, boom, right? But you got to let them find that path. So if they want to sell this place, if they're interested in it, that's their life journey.
Yeah.
But you got to give them the space to do that. So, and making mistakes makes you a better person. Right? I deal with a lot of wealthy people, and their kids don't have any room for mistakes because everything's taken care of for them. They're generally not pleasant people to hang around.
Yeah.
And they're not successful. So life's journey is it's like this. It's not like that. So give them the space to do that stuff, and that's something I have to remind myself all the time.
I was gonna say it has to seem like a difficult balance. Like you want them to go through struggle, but not too much struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you want them to taste dirt and shit, so they don't taste it again.
Yeah.
Once you taste that, you're like, fuck that, man. I want honey.
Yeah.
Right. But if you don't allow them to taste that, if you're always propping them up before they hit that bottom, then they'll never know what it's like. And when they hit the bottom, you're there to catch that. But they got to go to that level. So they're like, I'm not going that way again.
Tell them to not touch the stove or
exactly.
And then they touch it regardless.
Exactly.
And they learn.
Exactly. And we'll do it again. That's how you do it. The temptation as a parent is to protect them from that. That's the curiosity, right? And that's what you want to do.
So what do you want to be at the end of the day? What would you want to be remembered for?
I think two things. One is on my tombstone, I would like to say he loved life. Right? For me, that's my thing. What I'd like to be remembered for, I encourage everyone else to love life. It's wonderful. I mean, every day we're here, it's amazing. We can do things we haven't heard of. And people are like, oh, the good old days sucked. Okay. Okay. The refrigeration, people are dying. This is the best of our lives are right now. So just enjoy it. Don't worry about shit you can't control. Just embrace it with all you have. And trust me, and keep that network of friends by you, and that's a life well lived.
I appreciate that. Well, listen, Jay, I want to say thank you for coming.
Thank you for having my friend
on the podcast. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. Yeah, this was kind of like why I wanted to start a podcast. 'Cause I feel like we could have these conversations, but it's nice to sit down and no phone or anything like that. And that's...
Well, plus I'm also not drunk, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So...
That's true. That's true.
It's true.
Hey,
Thanks,
I mean,
man.
It's good information either way.
Yeah.
Drunk too. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the time. I know you're a busy man, but
I enjoyed it, and I saw you when you came up to the Raffaldini, and I thought you were a good guy right away, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your growing list of listeners/followers.
Yes, listeners/followers. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
All right. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.